All right. Good evening, East Coast personnel. Good morning or good afternoon if you're overseas. Uh, and good evening to my West Coast people, right? This is the advancement study session for the first classes that are taking the Chiefs exam. Um, I know some people might think, well, first classes have been doing this for a while, so why do they need a study session? Well, I feel like we all can use a little help every now and then. Not to mention, you never know if someone has been mapped all the way to first class, and this might be their first time actually taking the Navy-wide advancement exam. As I mentioned in my post in the group, do not underestimate the advancement exam for Chief. It's probably one of the worst times to not do good on the exam, seeing as the exam only comes around once a year. So if you do not do well on the exam, you don't make board, then you have to wait a whole another year to try to make board again. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a year behind, especially if it's something that's in my control. So I always try to make sure that I mention that. Take this just as serious as you do anything else. You got to take care of yourself just like you take care of others. That being said, I'm Chief McCauley. Welcome back. This is the first live Zoom session in a long time for the HM Inspiration and Mentorship Group. But hey, we're back at it. All right. So today our topic is going to be Decedent Affairs, Chapter 25 of your Hospital Corpsman Manual. This is it. This is a reminder that your Hospital Corpsman Manual is always on your bibs. All right. If you see NAVAD training 14925 B, then any section in your Corpsman Manual questions can be pulled from. And I can assure you that Decedent Affairs, you definitely will get questions on your exam. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm going to go through this chapter just like I do any other of my EAPs. We're going to run through each section. We're going to do some highlights. It would behoove you to probably take notes, do note cards, whatever works for you. And then we'll kind of do a review at the end. At the end of the day, all we're trying to do is get you to retain the information, right? Get it so you can remember the information. So I'm not going to sit here and teach a course as in like you're in a college course. That's not what this is about. This is simply to keep going over the information so you can remember it. So therefore, when it comes time for you to take the exam, when you see a question on the exam, your brain is like, hey, I remember that. That old crazy chief was over there talking about that. I remember him saying that. So I think that's the answer right there. And as long as you go with what your brain is telling you, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to be right. But if you ever challenge your brain, 10 times out of 9, you're probably going to be wrong. All right, so let's get after it. All right, let me get my handy dandy highlighter. If you logged in, please make sure you go on, you silence your electronic device. All right, so chapter 5, Decedent Affairs, Decedent Affairs program. So here's the first thing that if I was in your shoes, I would highlight and know. Ooh, my highlighting is horrible. The overall manager for the Decedent Affairs program is Navy Casualty and Mortuary Affairs. I say again, the overall manager of the Navy Marine Corps Decedent Affairs program is Navy Casualty and Navy Mortuary Affairs. So, if I was writing a question on your exam, I would probably put, who is the overall manager for the Decedent Affairs program? I will put A, commanding officer, because that's what you typically want to put for everything when you hear overall or ultimately. So I would put commanding officer. I would probably put chief of naval operations. I'd probably put BUMED, because all y'all are corpsmen, so you think BUMED owns everything. And then I will put Navy Casualty, Navy Mortuary Affairs. So remember, the overall manager of the Decedent Affairs program is Navy Casualty, Navy Mortuary Affairs. Don't worry, Sam. I'll mute you. I got you. All right. And oh, by the way, because I've done this numerous times when I do my advancement trainings, while I'm going through this section, if I pass over something that you have seen recently, by all means, come off your audio and be like, hey, Chief, I've seen that one, that little section right there. I've seen a question about that. And then let's make sure we bring that to the group. All right. This is not about me. I don't know it all. I just know what I've seen numerous times. But if you catch something that I missed, let's share it with the group so we'll all do good. All right. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the actual programs that are under the Decedent Affairs. There are 5 programs. All right, so there's some keywords in each program that we're going to talk about that should help you remember. Like if there's a question about that program, it'll help you remember that it is that one. So the current death program. The current death program provides professional mortuary services, supplies, and related, I'm trying to get my highlighter right, and related services to the incident to the care. All right, so your keywords for the current death program provides professional mortuary services, supplies, and services. All right. Typically, I don't normally see that one. I'll show you the one I normally see, but they could switch it around on you. So just remember, current death program is professional mortuary services, related services, and supplies. All right, graves. So this is the one that I've seen more often than not. The Graves Registration Program, call it the GREG, right? GREG. So think, so if you haven't done any of my advancements before, you'll see this is kind of how I do it. But think of Greg, like a guy named Greg. So we're talking about Greg. Greg is a Graves Registration Program. Greg is a temporary person in your life. Like we don't need Greg. Greg just here just because he just want to be cool with us, but we don't need Greg, right? So Greg is a temporary person in your life, right? So Graves Registration Program provides for, and here's your key words: search and recovery and evacuation to a temporary cemetery. Temporary cemetery. That is your keyword. Search and recovery to a temporary cemetery. So Greg ain't gonna be here forever. All right, Greg is just I'm gonna try to keep this professional. Greg is just someone that's gonna come and go. All right, we ain't keeping Greg around. All right, that's the Graves Registration Program. It is search, recovery, and evacuation to a temporary cemetery. So if you're deployed somewhere, right, something happens, casualty, and you cannot evacuate the body back home, then maybe you're gonna put them in a temporary cemetery where you are, and then we'll talk about where you go from there. But we're gonna activate the Graves Registration Program, Greg, because Greg not staying here. All right. Greg is a temporary person. I'll let you use your mind for whatever term you want to use for Greg. Now, concurrent return program. All right, concurrent return program. So the concurrent return program, it combines the current death program, which remember, current death provides mortuary services and related services and expenses, right? It combines the current death program and the Graves Registration Program. So your keyword in there is it combines the current death and the Graves Registration Program. All right. And you know, if you read on, it talks about the concurrent return program normally becomes operational when large numbers of military personnel are committed to a strategic area, remains buried in a temporary cemetery under the Graves program, or any emergencies will normally be disinterred and evacuated under the current return program. So what helped me think about the concurrent return program, besides obviously the keyword combine, is if you're familiar with evaluations, right? You probably have heard of a concurrent eval, right? And so when you think about a concurrent eval, you have your eval that is, you know, at your command, which will be your periodic or your regular eval. And then if you get deployed somewhere, let's say you go on an IA, then your command where you're deployed at will also do an eval on you, and that eval is called a concurrent eval. And when you come back home to your parent command will take that eval and your eval at your parent command, and they can either use the concurrent eval towards your advancement, or they can just use your periodic. But either way, they can combine the two evals. So that's where you get concurrent from. Concurrent means combining. So you're combining the current death, you're combining the Greg. The current death is provide mortuary services and related services and expenses while the Greg is a temporary dude. Greg ain't gonna be around for a while, so we're gonna temporarily bury you. And concurrent is activated when you got somebody that you're gonna do professional services. You're gonna put them in a temporary site. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. So concurrent is combining. Greg is not staying, he's temporary, and current is providing mortuary services related expenses. All right, and y'all see how I kind of go back every time I talk about it? That's how you're gonna remember is when you study, go forward, go back. All right, let's move forward. And then you got return of remains. Now, this one you're probably not gonna see because it's kind of in the name what it is. Return of remains program. So at the end of the day, the return of remains program provides for permanent disposition of remains of persons buried in temporary cemeteries who could not be evacuated under the current return. So there's some key things in there. Your main keyword is permanent disposition. That's your main keyword, permanent disposition. All right. Now, it talks about basically getting them out of the temporary cemeteries that you activated under Greg and bringing them back to a permanent, right? And that's only if they could not be evacuated under the concurrent return program. All right. So your concurrent is your combining. Your return of remains is bringing them back for a permanent disposition when they were under Greg. Greg is temporary. And then we talked about current. And then last but not least is your casualty assistance calls program. All right, so there's some key things in here, right? As a first class going up for chief, all right, if you got to think, if I'm writing your exam, what do I want you to know at the chief level? And this is the type of stuff I want you to know. All right, I don't care about no patient care. If you ain't got patient care down pat by now, obviously we've been doing something wrong all the way up till now. So I need to know if you know who is in charge of all this stuff, who is running these things, who are these people, right? So the Casualty Assistance Calls Program is administered by the Chief of Naval Operations Personnel Command. Ooh, my highlight just sucks, huh? Y'all get it though. All right, Casualty Assistance Calls is administered by Chief of Naval Operations Personnel Command. If you ever see CMC in high level categories, it's talking about Commandant of the Marine Corps, not Command Master Chief. All right. And for those of y'all, if you've never been greenside, Commandant of the Marine Corps would be equivalent to our CNO. Okay, CAICO. So know what CAICO stands for? Casualty Assistance Calls Officer. And then know who can be a CAICO. It has to be a commissioned officer or senior enlisted personnel. This highlight is killing me. I don't know what happened to the old highlighter they used to have on here, but this thing. So, okay. So commissioned officer or senior enlisted personnel can be a CAICO. I'm not going to highlight the duties of a CAICO because if you understand what the CAICO is, the CAICO's responsibility is to basically be there for the secondary next of kin, right? The CAICO is the person that's going to deal with the family. So if you're talking about dealing with the family over somebody that just passed away, to me, everything in this block here makes sense. Now, I say that if you've never had to deal with somebody that has passed away or anything, then maybe it doesn't make sense. But if you just read over this section, these are the basic things that are normally done when you have a service member or really anybody that passes away, but definitely a service member because this is strictly dealing with service members. So you're going to help the family get these things together. All right. All right. Y'all already know this. You got to know your instructions. So this one I think should be easy for you. The NAVPERS 1550, I'm sorry, 15560 is your personnel manual. All right, NAVPERS 15560. First off, it says NAVPERS. Obviously, that means Navy personnel. So it's going to be a personnel manual. So if you don't remember nothing else, if you remember NAV PERS and you're in your Decedent Affairs section, you know it's talking about the personnel manual. The instruction for the Casualty Assistance Calls program is BUPERS Instruction 1770.1. Now I'm gonna give y'all a little tip if you don't already know this. One easy way to remember instructions is first look at the name, right? So if you see BUPERS, then you obviously know that that instruction is dealing with people, right? It's dealing with personnel. So then if you read the name of whatever you're dealing with, for example, your question on exam might be, what is the instruction for the Navy Casualty Assistance Call Program? Well, you know, Casualty Assistance Calls Program is under Chief of Naval Operations Personnel, because we just talked about that. Well, if it's under Chief of Naval Operations Personnel, then obviously it has to be a BUPERS instruction, because Bureau of Personnel owns anything dealing with personnel. So if your answers are BUPERS instruction, blah, 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 BUMED instruction, blah, 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 OpNav instruction, blah, 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 SecNav, you should already have your answer based off of BUPERS alone. Okay? Just throwing that little tidbit out there. All right. You better know this one. Notification of death, 4 hours. That's simple. If I was you, I would definitely write that down. If you got the corpsman manual pulled up, I would highlight it. If you got an actual corpsman book, I would circle it, put a booger on it, whatever makes you happy. But you need to know that right there. Within 4 hours, notification of death. All right. And I'm saying that because we're going to go over a few items here where you have to do certain things in a certain amount of time. So 4 hours, notification of death. 4 hours, notification of death. 4 hours, notification of death. All right. NAV PERS 15560 personnel manual. 5 programs under the current death programs, right? And you got current death, which is professional mortuary services, related expenses. You got GREG, which is temporary, right? You got concurrent, which is combining the two. You got the return of remains, which is putting in a permanent disposition, right? You got the CAICO, which answers to the secondary next of kin. The CAICO is usually who? A senior enlisted or a commissioned officer. All right. I'm doing that now, but at the end of this, I'm going to ask y'all to give me feedback and make sure y'all understand, y'all remember this stuff. All right. So 4 hours, notification of death. All right. Personnel casualty report, PCR. This is another one that you're more than likely going to see. It should be sent via priority message. So I've seen it on the exam where it asks personnel casualty report should be sent how? Routine, emergency, insert whatever other words you want to use, and then priority. The answer is obviously priority. PCR, priority. PCR, priority. All right. Notification of the next of kin. You need to know these hours. The pad, so in cases of death, right? The pad is personally notified by a uniformed service member, right, as appropriate. Personal notification of the pad will normally be made between the hours of 05 and 2400. All right, I've seen that on your exam too. So when you talk about notification of the next of kin, right, the pad will be notified between 0500 and 2400. And if the pad is throwing you off, then when you go back up here, I think it was under CAICO, right here. The CAICO helps the pad and the secondary next of kin. Okay, so, but for this purposes, you just need to know when does the pad need to be notified. And it is between 05 and 2400. All right, definitely know this. CAICOs are assigned for a period of 90 days to 9 months, depending on the needs of the families. Now, in real life, yeah, it could go longer than that. But for advancement exam purposes, 90 days to 9 months, CAICO. 90 days to 9 months, CAICO. 90 days to 9 months, CAICO. 4 hours, notification of death. 05 to what, 24 for PAD. All right. Condolence letter. COs are required to write a letter to the appropriate next of kin within 48 hours of the casualty. I'll say that again. COs are required to write a condolence letter within 48 hours of the casualty. All right. So condolence letter, 48 hours, notification of death, 4 hours, contact the PAD between 05 and 2400. The personnel casualty report must be sent priority message. And then CAICOs at 90 days to 9 months. Okay, so for autopsies, typically the ones that I've seen, and again, for those of y'all that are out there, if you see something different, you're more than welcome to speak up. For the ones that I've seen for autopsies, it usually had to deal with, I want to say air crew. Yeah, so I'm just gonna highlight air crew autopsy. And typically the question was, and I'm a paraphrase here, but it was something along the lines of, when would the CO or, insert whatever authority, when would an autopsy be requested for a casualty? And it would give you different, obviously your A, B, C, and D would be different answers, but the answer would be an aircrew autopsy. Or for example, in here, it might talk about when an aircrew member dies while serving as an aircrew member. So if you just think about anything aviation, like if any of your answers are dealing with aviation, an autopsy is going to be requested. And I don't know if I have any ABTs that are on right now, but anybody that's done aviation will tell you that has to be done because they have to figure out, obviously, if there were drugs that were involved with that. So if there's like an aviation mishap or something like that, then they have to know if there were any drugs or something involved in that. So an autopsy will be completed with aircrew. Hopefully what I just said makes sense. Okay, bam. So I knew it was one in this section. So in this next section, it talks about search and recovery, right? So it's in the name, but if there's a casualty, if there's a body missing, right, we're not just gonna leave that service member out there. We're obviously gonna activate a search and recovery team. The part in here that if I were you, I would highlight is right here. When search and recovery and identification operations continue for more than 36 hours, chronological progress reports should be dispatched every 24 hours to BUMED and the Navy Casualty Office. And oh, by the way, since we're seeing that name again, the Navy Casualty Office, who owns this program? Who's the overall manager of Decedent Affairs? Navy Casualty Office. All right. So that's going back way in the beginning of this chapter. So for search and recovery, if operations continue for more than 36 hours, then you must send a chronological progress report every 24 hours to BUMED and the Navy Casualty Office. Again, 36 hours every 24 hours. BUMED, Casualty Office. 36 hours every 24 hours, BUMED, Navy Casualty Office. Okay. I think that's it. That's it in that section. Okay, so I would definitely know this for annual contracts. So when we're talking about procuring mortuary services, right, there are, just to put things in perspective for you, there are funeral homes that we have contracts with, right? In order for annual contracts to be awarded to funeral directors, they have to, and this is crazy, but they have to be anticipating 3 or more deaths per year. So, I mean, I say that's crazy because it's like you're anticipating somebody to die. But in order to get annual contracts, the funeral director has to be anticipating 3 or more deaths per year. So I would highlight that, put a booger on it, draw a smiley face, whatever makes you happy. 3 or more deaths per year for annual contracts. All right. So typically you'll have at least one question that I've seen that is going to talk about either a primary expense or a secondary expense, because transportation expense is just too easy for y'all to know. Obviously, if it's dealing with delivery and removal and all, I mean, that's obviously transportation, right? But the goal here is to see if you understand the difference between a primary expense and a secondary expense. So I always tell people, if you've dealt with the funeral, if you had somebody pass away in your family or something like that, you probably know this more than somebody else. But if you've never had that, there are primary expenses in a funeral, and all of these would be that: embalming, autopsy, dressing, casketing, cosmetics, hairstyling, cremation, and uniform. These are all basic things that go into a funeral. So there's nothing that stands out about this. These are all just basic things to, professionally lay a service member to rest, right? So those will be your primary expenses. Anything that's in connection with the recovery, preparation, encasement, and burial. So any one of these could be your answers if it asks what is a primary expense, or it might give you this and say, is it a primary or secondary expense? So just think about whatever it is and think about if it's something that's needed or if it's something that's wanted. All of these are needed in order to bury someone professionally, right? Everything in your secondary expense are things that are wanted. So I always tell, my people when I do my advancement exam is, I don't know if y'all ever saw Whitney Houston's funeral, but she had everything, like literally everything. Or think of any celebrity for that matter. Whenever a celebrity dies, they're gonna get everybody. They're gonna get everything, right? They're gonna get a limousine, they're gonna get a vault, they're gonna get flowers, notices, prayer cards, a soloist or organist. I mean, you name it, they get it all. Those are secondary expenses. You don't need all that to bury somebody, and I'm not trying to sound like that don't matter, right? But in order to lay somebody to rest, you don't need nobody singing at the funeral. That ain't gonna put them down. All right, so understand that. A big difference between primary and secondary. Everything here is needed to professionally bury somebody. Everything here is wanted. It would be so beautiful to put so-and-so to rest with all these beautiful things because they lived such a beautiful life and they deserve a beautiful funeral. There you go. All right. Now, like again, to me, That's the best way to remember that, because if you try to sit here and remember each and every one of these, you're not gonna get that. But if while you're taking the exam, if it says which one of these is a secondary expense, and you look down and you're like, do they really need that? Then that's probably a secondary expense. If it says if this is a primary expense and you look down and you're like, oh yeah, that's something that's needed to bury someone, then you got it. All right, so we definitely getting into some good stuff right here. So let's talk about the initial preparation. I would definitely highlight this, write this on a flashcard, put a booger on it, draw a picture of Jesus, whatever makes you happy. To minimize cellular deterioration, remains should be refrigerated above the freezing point at 36 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 2.2 to 4.4 degrees Celsius. So I would know that, right? If you want to keep the cells from deteriorating, you're going to freeze the body at 36 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 2.2 to 4.4. I think those numbers are pretty easy. I remember those numbers: 3640, 2.2 to 4.4, 3640, 2.2 to 4.4, cells deteriorating. Like I remember it just like that. 36 to 40, 2.2 to 4.4, cells deteriorating. You want to keep the cells from deteriorating. All right. Okay, so I'm willing to bet you my paycheck, you're probably going to see something about this. Now, if you don't, you're not getting my paycheck. I'm just saying. But certificate of death overseas. Certificate of death overseas. So there's a few things in here that I would recommend that you know. Number one, it's 3 signed copies. So when you're talking about overseas death, it's 3 signed copies of the DD form 2064, which is the certificate of death. This highlighter kills me. Certificate of death overseas. DD form 2064, certificate of death overseas. You need 3 copies, right? Overseas, 3 copies, certificate of death. Overseas, 3 copies, certificate of death. And then you need 2, or at least 2, but 2 DD form 565s, which is your statement of recognition. So in total, you need 5 forms when you're dealing with a death overseas. 5 forms. 3, DD 2064, certificate of death. 2, DD 565, statement of recognition. And let's see, for the hours of pad, 05 to 24, right? 4 hours from the casualty to send out a notification. The personnel casualty report must be sent priority, right? And then you have 48 hours to write a condolence letter, right? There's 5 programs under Decedent Affairs. Greg is the temporary remains, right? Because Greg is temporary, right? Concurrent is combining the current death and Greg, right? To get them to a permanent disposition. And then return of remains is getting them to a permanent disposition when you can't activate the concurrent, right? CAICO, 90 days to 9 months, right? And CAICO is usually a officer, commissioned officer, or senior enlisted, right? And then keep the cells from deteriorating, 36 to 40, 2.2 to 4.4, right? All right, that's just to catch us back up. Oh, primary expenses, embalming, casketing, uniform, right? Secondary expenses, organist, soloist, programs, limousine, right? All right, moving on. We almost done, actually. Caskets, I would know the casket sizes. You have 2 sizes, 23 by 78, which is the standard size, and then 25 by 81, which is the oversized casket. Do what works for you as far as remembering the sizes. What worked for me was I thought about the numbers and just related it to something. So when I thought of 23 by 78, I thought of the number 23, and I think of Michael Jordan. And to me, Michael Jordan is standard size. When I thought of 25 by 81, I thought of 81 was, I want to say, Terrell Owens' number in football. So I thought of Terrell Owens being bigger than Michael Jordan, so Terrell Owens be oversized. You can take those numbers and use it however you want to. but 23 is regular by 78, 25 by 81 is oversized. That's what helped me out. At sea disposition was one that I saw quite often. The biggest thing about at sea disposition is in order to do an at sea burial, the request has to go to the fleet CNIC right here. So again, I would put a question on your exam where who handles the request for at sea dispositions, or who is responsible for at sea dispositions? And I would put obviously commanding officer, CMC, CNO, or fleet CINC, right? Because some of y'all are probably going to put commanding officer, but no, it literally says it right here: commanding officers who receive requests for at sea disposition. Hold on, let me mute them. For at sea disposition remains or cremains, will forward the request to the appropriate fleet commander in chief. All right, so remember, the fleet CINC is the one that handles at sea dispositions or burial at seas. Government air is not authorized in CONUS without approval of the CNO. All right, so obviously we're talking about transporting the body right now. All right, so if we're transporting the remains, right, government air is not authorized within CONUS without approval of the CNO. So when you're transporting remains of contagious or communicable disease victims, the transfer case or casket must be closed immediately and gummed by a 2x4 label marked contagious. I will highlight this part right here. Your keyword here is 2x4 label marked contagious. So, service member had, I don't know, insert whatever communicable disease, AIDS or something, right? And they passed away. As soon as you're done doing everything you're supposed to be doing, the transfer case must be closed immediately, and there will be a label that's marked contagious in capital letters, 2x4. All right. Okay, so now it talks about escorts. All right, and the big thing about escorts is down here, the selection of them. It is recommended, I will highlight this if I was you and I would know this. It is recommended that the escort should be a friend of the deceased, from the same unit of the deceased, same geographical region, and preferably of the same religion. Come on, this highlighter sucks. Preferably of the same religion. And I mean, that makes sense, right? Like the person that's going to be dealing with the family and the remains itself, right? Because this person will be carrying the remains. You obviously want someone who knows the service member, knows the family, and pretty much is very equivalent to the service member itself. Now, that's if they're not selected, by the next of kin, because the next of kin can say who they would like to, right? If they already know someone that their service member knew while they were serving in, but if the command has to select, then this is what they're looking for: friend of the deceased, same unit, same geographical region, and preferably the same religion. So there goes that certificate of death again, DD 2064. So being that you've seen it again, that might be something you want to remember. Okay, so I don't remember seeing anything with payments and collections when I took it. However, I do remember some other first classes mentioning that they saw something about payments and collections. So it's something in here in this section that talks about, let's see, if the next of kin makes arrangement for this rather than use services. DOD completes the funeral arrangements before DD service, the next of kin. Okay, so I think this is what they were talking about, that basically if the next of kin makes arrangements for, the funeral and things of that nature, rather than using the services of DOD, or they complete the funeral arrangement before DOD services are offered, the next of kin will be reimbursed, all right, at the annual amount approved by the DOD. So I would know that. And I want to say that there was a form, maybe. I didn't see a form number in here. So, all right, headstones and markers, that's always on your exam. I'm sure y'all already know this answer. Headstones and markers are provided by, sorry about my highlighter, it really sucks. Headstones and markers are provided by the VA, the Veteran Administration. But here's where they get you. They don't put VA, right? They put like Veterans Administrations, Veteran Affairs, Virginia. Like, it's something to throw you off, but just know it's Veterans Administration is what you're looking for. That's who covers the headstones and markers. There it is. This is the form I was talking about, y'all. So the DD form 1375, request for payment. So this is where they get reimbursed. Remember I was just talking about if if there's anything dealing with reimbursement with families or anything like that. So just remember DD form 1375 is the request for payment of funeral and or intimate expenses. That's your form number. 1375 funeral expenses. 1375 funeral expenses. 1375 funeral expenses. You should know that Arlington National Cemetery is under the jurisdiction of the Department of the Army. All right, that is a very common one. And this is a very common one as well. So know the difference between open, closed, and new. The way I like to break it down to people is open. So there's 3 classifications of cemeteries, right? National cemeteries. If they're open, that means that they're active. And that means that there are cemeteries with grave spaces available, right? So grave spaces are available, meaning you can bring your bodies here, right? It's active, it's open. The National Cemetery is closed or inactive if there's no grave spaces available, right? So it's closed. We're not using it. No grave spaces available. And then it might be a new cemetery, but it's inactive, right? Because it's not open yet. So, you know, you can think about it like a restaurant, right? Your favorite restaurant, right? If the restaurant is open and there's seats available, go in and eat. If the restaurant's closed, then obviously you can't use it. Or if the restaurant is new, like it's being built, obviously you can't use it. So that's the way I kind of remember that and break that down. And then really, I want to say after that, that's where it dies down. Yep. And we saw this earlier. Last but not least, remember this instruction number. Your Decedent Affairs Manual. OpNav instruction 5360.1. OpNav instruction 5360.1. All right, and remember what I said about instructions. So OpNav is obviously Operation Navy, right? Navy Operations, Chief of Naval Operations. Obviously, Decedent Affairs is going to fall under Operations because it directly affects operations. So your OpNav instruction 5360.1 is your Decedent Affairs Manual. Now, because we're medical and we have our portion of this, that's why it's in the Hospital Corpsman Manual. But it's an OpNav instruction because it affects Navy operations. It doesn't affect BUMAD specifically. It's not high enough to go to SecNav. It's definitely not a personnel issue. It's an operational issue because there's processes that have to be put in place, right, to bring our service members back, to bury them, right? Funding is included, all that type of stuff. So, and with that being said, that is the end of chapter 25. So what I want to do real quick, unless anybody has anything to add, what I would like to do is just go back, ask some general questions, just get some feedback, see if you guys got it. Hey, if you guys got it, then we're good. Like this is right on time. It only took me an hour. So before I get into questions or asking you questions, is there anybody that has anything that they want to add?
Yeah, I got something to add. This Randolph. I sent you a message. When you get a chance, just look at it and then we'll talk about it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you good. All right, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, actually, I see two messages. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll check what you said, and then Shemay Torgerson brought up a good one that I like too. He said it helps me to remember that primary expenses touches the body, and secondary expenses is everything else, right? And he's absolutely right. Listen, if the soloist or the organist is touching the body, we got problems. All right. If flowers is touching the body, we got problems, right? So, hey, that's a great point. Primary expenses touches the body. Secondary is everything else. And if it's touching, then we got bigger issues. Good stuff. All right, so let's go back up real quick. I'm gonna ask some quick questions, just get some feedback. Make sure that this session was pretty good for you, and then we'll close out. So, can anybody answer me? What is the statement of recognition form? What is the form number? Statement of recognition. Okay, Scram put it in the chat. I'll take that. Y'all shy to come off audio. I'll take that. So yes, DD 565. Good stuff. All right. What type of message is sent for the personnel casualty report? Like what level? How is it sent? Y'all got it already. Priority. Okay. All right. Okay. I see you. Okay. Yes, priority was the answer, by the way. I don't know if everybody's looking at the chat. What are the hours of the pad?
05 to 2400.
Got him. All right, let's get it. Let's get it. How many hours does the CO have to send the condolence letter?
48 hours.
48.
All right, let's get it. Okay. Y'all motivate me, man. Y'all make me want to go take an exam again. Not. How soon should the notification be sent out for the casualty? Within how many? Oh, 4 hours. All right, good, good. So in regards to search and recovery, how many hours is it in the beginning that we're searching for? And then how many hours after that should we send a report up to? And then who do we send the reports to?
36 hours up to then 24, every 24 hours. And then I forgot the last part. Somebody else have to get that.
Okay. Okay, and somebody put it in the chat too. So BUMED and Navy Casualty is who we send it to. So great job, great job. Okay, we're almost done. What is the instruction for Decedent Affairs manual?
OpNav 5360.1.
All right, let's get it. Good, good. How long is a CAICO assigned?
Up to 9 months.
Okay, but we're not just gonna leave it at that. Okay, somebody put it in the group. So you were partly right, but yes, it's 90 days to 9 months. So yeah, up to 9 months, but start with the 90 days. 90 days to 9 months. How many programs are there total under Decedent Affairs?
5.
All right, 5. Good to go. And under this program, I am temporary burying the body at a site. Greg, there you go, Graves. Greg and/or Graves, good job. Under this program, I am combining the current death and the Graves.
Concurrent.
All right, concurrent it is. Give me 2 things that if as a command, when I'm assigning an escort, this is what I'm looking for.
Preferably same geographic region and same religion.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. And then some other people said friend, same unit. All right, good stuff. I'll take it. What is the certificate of death? What's the form number?
DD 2064.
All right, let's get it. Now, if I have a death overseas, how many forms do I need total, and break it down? How many of each, and what are the name of those forms?
3 certificates of death and 2 statements of recognition.
All right. All right. Sound like y'all heard a little something. All right, let me see if I can get y'all on this one. Give me the 2 casket sizes.
23 by 78 for the regular, 25 by 81 for the big size.
Nice. So we got Michael Jordan at 23. We got Terrell Owens at 81. All right, let's get it. Let me see if I can get y'all on this next one then. What is the temperature to keep the cells from deteriorating?
36 to 40 Fahrenheit.
Okay, there you go. All right, 36 to 40, 2.2 to 4.4. All right. And then what is the military personnel manual?
First man 15560.
All right, all right. All right, let me get one more and then we're good. Y'all already making me feel like y'all know a little something. Let me get one more. What's one more? Let's do those are too easy. Those are too easy. What is the form for reimbursement of expenses?
DD 1375.
All right, that's it. So yeah, based on the feedback that I just got from you all, it lets me know that either you already knew this and I wasted my time, or you actually got some stuff out of this session tonight. Don't forget to think about the at-sea disposition, right? Don't forget to look at, I think we might have covered everything else that I highlighted. But based on what you said, I think you guys got it. Remember, this is recorded, so you are more than welcome to come back to it at any time. Definitely know your programs, know who's in charge, know your instructions. Always, always, always know your instructions, right? And a lot of them are in the beginning. I know I keep scrolling, probably giving y'all a seizure over there, but like right here in this section here, definitely know these, right? Including the OpNav instruction, right? So, but Decedent Affairs will be on your exam. It is a heavy one, and I think you guys will do well. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions before I let you go?
No, thank you for giving us your time.
Chief, I got one quick question if you got a minute.
Absolutely.
In regards to the Decedent Affairs program, right? It's covered under the chapter we just covered. And then it also, the Decedent Affairs manual is also listed on the bib. Should I spend twice as much time on this program because it's listed twice on my bib? Or am I going to get the majority of the questions that we normally see from chapter 25? Thank
So
you.
I'm smiling big because every year I get that question. And then every time I did the EAP, I would always get that question. Since this is a recorded session, and I don't know who's going to be watching this, and I'm still in the great Navy, I will say if it's on your bib, it's probably worth looking at. But I will tell you that everything that is in that is in here. So, and this is much more updated than that. So I will just let you make your own decision. How about that?
Tracking.
All right. Listen, I got a commission coming up. Y'all ain't about to get me hemmed up. No, all right. Well, if that's it, if nobody has anything else, I do thank you all. I know you over here thanking me, but no, I thank you for your time and good luck on your chief exam. The next chapter that I will do will be medical logistics chapter 5, which is huge. So I'm gonna try to do that one earlier in the day because that one's gonna take at least an hour because it is a huge session. But it is very much needed. And so, yeah, with that being said, go dogs, and y'all have a blessed evening.